Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding that your bank card doesn't work. Not because you're out of money, but because the bank itself has ceased to exist in the eyes of the world. Your savings are there, locked in a digital vault, but the door has been welded shut from the outside. You try to wire money to a relative, the system rejects it. You try to buy fuel for your country, the transaction evaporates. You haven't been bombed. No soldiers have crossed your borders. No shots were fired. Yet, your economy is bleeding out in real time. Welcome to the era of financial decapitation. For decades, we've been told that the ultimate expression of power is the nuclear triad, subs, silos, and bombers. That is a lie. The most potent weapon in the 21st century isn't a missile, it's a 15-character alphanumeric code. It's a messaging system based in a quiet suburb of Brussels. We are talking about SWIFT. Most people think of SWIFT as a bank. It isn't. Most think it's a neutral utility. It isn't. It is the central nervous system of global capitalism, and for the last 20 years, the United States has turned that nervous system into a strangler's noose. Disclaimer: the analysis following is based on systemic architectural data of international settlements. It is not political advocacy, it is a deconstruction of geopolitical plumbing. Understanding this system is the difference between seeing the world as a collection of nations and seeing it as a web of programmable nodes. Plumbing as power. To understand the dollar trap, you have to stop looking at money as gold or paper. In the digital age, money is nothing more than data in motion. If you are in Brazil and you want to buy microchips from Taiwan, you don't fly a suitcase of cash to Taipei. You use the plumbing. The message: your bank sends a message to the seller's bank. The settlement: the actual value moves between accounts. SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, is the message. It handles over 42 million messages a day. It connects 11,000 institutions. It is the Google Translate of money. Without it, banks are deaf and mute. You would think a global utility would be neutral. But SWIFT is built on a foundation of dollar hegemony. Because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, nearly every cross-border transaction must eventually touch a US correspondent bank. This is the choke point. The US doesn't need to own SWIFT to control it. Because if the US Treasury says, any bank that talks to Bank X will be banned from the US dollar market, that bank is effectively dead. To choose Bank X is to choose exile from 80% of global trade. As former Treasury Secretary Jack Lew once signaled, the more we use sanctions, the more we increase the risk that the world will look for alternatives. But here is the cynical truth: there are no easy alternatives. The mechanics of the siege. In traditional warfare, a siege meant surrounding a city and waiting for them to starve. It was messy, expensive, and loud. Modern financial sieges are clean. They happen in air-conditioned rooms in D.C. and Brussels. When a country is disconnected from SWIFT, its value is frozen in place. The Iranian Precedent: in 2012, the US pressured SWIFT to disconnect Iranian banks. Overnight, Iran's oil exports plummeted by nearly 50%. Their currency didn't just devalue, it disintegrated. The Russian escalation: in 2022, the world watched the nuclear option. The removal of major Russian banks from SWIFT. This was the first time a G20 economy, a primary energy supplier, was subjected to financial decapitation. The data check: according to the IMF, the US dollar still accounts for roughly 58% of global foreign exchange reserves. While this is down from 70% in 1999, its dominance in transactions remains absolute. You can't run a global supply chain on good intentions. You run it on liquidity. And the US owns the tap. Your personal SWIFT. You might think this is high macroeconomics that doesn't touch your life. Think again. Have you ever had your credit card flagged for suspicious activity while traveling? That moment of sudden impotence, standing at a counter, unable to pay for a meal, despite having the funds, is a micro version of a SWIFT ban. Now, imagine that feeling scaled up to 330 million people. Humans have a psychological quirk. We value autonomy above almost all else. We hate feeling managed. Yet, we have built a global civilization where our collective autonomy is outsourced to a single clearinghouse. We have traded security for efficiency. We chose the fast payment over the safe sovereignty. The dollar trap, why you can't leave. If the system is so dangerous, why does the world stay? Why don't China, Russia, and India just walk away? This is the network effect. Think of it like a social media platform. You might hate the terms of service on Facebook or X, but if everyone you know is there, leaving means social suicide. For a country, leaving the dollar SWIFT ecosystem means higher costs. Trading in rubles or yuan is expensive because fewer people want them. You pay a liquidity tax. Incompatibility. Your plumbing doesn't fit the rest of the world's pipes. The threat of secondary sanctions. If you build a shadow system, the US can simply sanction the shadow system too. It is a Hotel California economy. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. The architecture of resistance, the surprising insight. Here is where the story takes a dark, analytical turn. The weaponization of SWIFT has triggered a Cambrian explosion of financial technology. We are currently witnessing the greatest architectural shift in money since the end of the gold standard in 1971. CIPS, China, the cross-border interbank payment system. It is China's in case of emergency glass box. M-Bridge, a project involving the BIS, Bank for International Settlements, exploring multi-CBDC, central bank digital currency, platforms that bypass the US dollar entirely. The rise of asset-backed digital values. Countries are looking at programmable money tied to physical commodities, gold, oil, rare earth minerals, to bypass the message entirely. The irony, by using the financial nuclear option, the US may have destroyed the very deterrent that gave it power. Once you use a weapon of this magnitude, the target has nothing left to lose. They stop trying to fix the old system and start building a new one where the US doesn't hold the keys. The moral hazard, efficiency versus security. We are taught that globalism is about peace through trade. The idea was that if our economies are intertwined, we won't go to war. Interdependence isn't just a bridge, it's a leash. The SWIFT dollar trap is a testament to the fact that in the modern world, neutrality is an illusion. Every time you tap your phone to pay, every time a company exports a widget, we are participating in a system that is fundamentally political. As Nathan Mayer Rothschild famously said, or at least understood, I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply. Replace Britain with the global clearinghouse, and you have the blueprint for the 2020s. The future of the fracture. The world is fracturing into financial hemispheres. We are moving away from a single, unified global village and toward a global archipelago. Small islands of trade protected by their own encrypted messaging systems, their own digital currencies, and their own walls. The SWIFT dollar trap was the ultimate tool of American hegemony. But in the physics of power, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The weaponization of the clearinghouse has taught the rest of the world that if you don't own your plumbing, you don't own your country. The next war won't be won by the side with the most tanks. It will be won by the side that can keep its messages moving while the rest of the world goes dark.